To me, burnout is that overwhelming feeling of even though the littlest task can seem like they're a burden for you. It's a struggle to think creatively, to get stuff done. I almost see it more as people are almost over-present. You kind of have that facial expression of every little thing that's going on is taking away from you need to be doing work right now.
Burnout isn't just workplace stress. It's a debilitating state of exhaustion that impacts every aspect of life. On this episode of Navigate's People First podcast, we're joined by Ben Schultz, the people and culture lead at Navigate, to explore the hidden signs of burnout and how to build a truly resilient workforce, where taking time off isn't just encouraged, it's essential.
The culture that combats burnout has to be led from the top down. It can't just be an HR initiative. If it feels like it's just coming from HR, then it feels like a policy. All of our leaders have to understand that they own retention. Their team is their responsibility. Their team's physical and psychological safety when they're here at work is their responsibility. It's not just a general check-in question. It's being intentional about those conversations.
When you think about differentiating between general workplace stress and actual burnout, maybe connect the dots on that when you think about factors contributing to employee burnout and the difference between that and maybe workplace stress.
Yeah, I mean, the most important thing is
Welcome to the Navigate People First podcast. Thank you all for joining us, and continue to subscribe and like our podcasts if we are bringing value to your day. Today, Jay and I are joined by Ben Schultz, our people and culture lead here at Navigate. Ben has been instrumental in building upon our culture here at Navigate and earning our Great Place to Work designation. Ben is here to help Jay and I discuss the topic of burnout. Whether you have personally experienced burnout or you're a resource for those who have experienced burnout, this episode has a little something for everyone. So let's get started. Thanks for joining us today, Ben. We're here to talk about a serious issue around burnout in today's workplace. And let's start out with this. Ben, how would you personally define burnout in the context of the workplace?
To me, burnout is that overwhelming feeling of even though the littlest task can seem like they're a burden for you. It's a struggle to think creatively, to get stuff done. I almost think of it as self-defense. You're really just doing what you need to do to survive and get through the day. And that looks very different to a lot of people, but it all comes from just feeling like what you have is too much.
Listening to employees is a significant opportunity for employer groups, organizations throughout the country. When you think about differentiating between general workplace stress and actual burnout, maybe connect the dots on that when you think about factors contributing to employee burnout and the difference between that and maybe workplace stress.
Yeah, it's important to differentiate. I think general workplace stress sometimes is seasonal. It fluctuates, comes and goes, could be dealing with different projects. And largely when you think of workplace stress, usually there's an end date associated with it, right? When I finish this project, things are going to get better. When I think of burnout and have seen it in employees, it's almost an ongoing thing. It's hard to define when it started. It's hard to think about when it's going to end. It's hard to think about what you can even do to get out of that. It's almost kind of the spiral, which is differentiated from workplace stress.
Ben, can you help us with maybe some of those identifiers? If someone's out there listening and going, I'm not sure, maybe you can't identify the difference between stress and burnout. For example, I've heard, the dreading coming in the morning, right? And beyond just like, oh, I don't want to get out of bed, but like actually dreading coming to work. What are some of the things to look out for?
The most important thing is to know your people. Everybody shows up differently. I think when you think of common symptoms of people being in burnout, a lot of times people think of absenteeism or withdrawing from work. I almost see it more as people are almost over present. You kind of have that facial expression of every little thing that's going on is taking away from you need to be doing work right now. You're on a meeting and you can tell somebody's got several other tabs open because they're just trying to fight through all these tasks, right? I don't see it as a withdrawal, as more over putting yourself in, which you seem distracted. Even basic conversations with coworkers, you tend to be a little more withdrawn because it's taking away from that time that your brain is saying, I need to get this done so I can just cross it off my list and call it a day.
Can you repeat that? I wasn't paying attention. I was focused on something else.
Ben, there's physical exhaustion, there's emotional detachment, there's, that leads to declining performance and then perhaps even increased absenteeism. When you think about the culture that we built here at Navigate and how we're helping companies build their culture, open communication and that psychological safety, to me, raises to the top, number one priority. Maybe talk to me about how you're encouraging managers for regular check-ins or creating those safe spaces for feedback.
The culture that combats burnout has to be led from the top down. It can't just be an HR initiative. If it feels like it's just coming from HR, then it feels like a policy, right? All of our leaders have to understand that they own retention. Their team is their responsibility. Their team's physical and psychological safety when they're here at work is their responsibility, because they've all seen the impact of not having that team member, of being short-staffed, of having to do more on their own. So it's reminding them of those little things that you do go a long way to making sure that your employees are okay. And it's not just a general check-in question. It's being intentional about those conversations.
It's that active listening and responding to that active listening as well, to employee concerns and making sure that they're heard and addressed. Jay, when you think about organizations that are out there looking at ways that they can be a leader in promoting and supporting those well-being initiatives, maybe talk about your team and then what you're seeing perhaps in the marketplace.
Managing or being in the position of a manager is a really challenging thing to do. And for any manager out there, the first thing, their first priority is not to, analytics or metrics, it's to their people, because those are going to roll up into, your results as a strong leader. So I would say, first thing we need to do is, if these managers are so important and people leave organizations because of their own manager, they're not getting what they need out of them, then how are we putting our managers in a position to thrive? How are we giving them the training, the education, the tools, and even just the general talking to about how you feel about your people and how you interact with them and how you want to contribute to their growth and how that's going to contribute to your success? I think too often we put people in leadership positions because they're the best at the job they're doing. And they say, okay, well, because of that, you're probably also the best at leading people, which is not always the case. And even if it is the case, you still need support, still need training, still need mentorship. And I think that the industry is finally sort of waking up to that concept that well-being as a whole needs to be more than physical activity and nutrition, right? It's more than about getting steps and eating right. The whole person comes to work. And so as a holistic well-being program, everybody needs to be addressing all of our people's concerns. And that could be about their job. That could be about personal interactions. That could be about stress. That could be about all of the things that Navigate helps people to support. But I think it starts with recognizing how important the role of a leader is for every single person that works in an organization, and doing your best to support them, whatever that means for your culture.
And there's a balance, right? There's the stressors of work, and then there's burnout. As we look at ways to differentiate that general workplace stress and that actual burnout, sometimes I think about being coached in college and my coach pressing me to say, hey, you can do more. You have this ability. You can, he was pushing me to do better, or potentially even seeing what I couldn't see as my potential, as I was working and playing and whatnot. I've had wonderful mentors do that with me as well, pressing me to understand, hey man, you can unleash this, go after it. There's a balance there. And that's a tough balance. How do you see well-being initiatives, Ben, maybe connecting to that balance of that workplace stress and that actual burnout too?
Well, it's really important, to your point, that we're encouraging people in their growth and development to understand the things they can do to get ahead of burnout. A lot of times, burnout's viewed as only an employer issue, And there are things that each of us can do to help be proactive, better utilize our time. So coming with strong growth and development plans focused around what does the future for your role look like, and how can you be better about managing your time, about delegating your responsibilities, and about upskilling yourself so you're more efficient, right? That's allowing the employee an opportunity to grow in their career. It goes along with their personal and professional growth as well. So I think growth and development is a large part of it for employees, but then also making sure that we understand what motivates this employee. What does a successful work-life balance look like to them, and how can we proactively work with them to make sure that work is working for them?
Jay, when you think about our platform and how we're supporting that whole person, and even thinking about factors outside work that might influence burnout, maybe touch on that a little bit, how that work-life balance and how our technology kind of connects folks to potential opportunities.
I think you've got to start at stress, right? Stressors upon our lives are more often than not coming from outside of workplace than inside, or at the very least equal, right? You think about family relations, you think about more and more people are caregivers for older and younger people of their family. You think about what's the number one stressor for most people? It's finances, right? All of these things should be addressed in a good holistic well-being program in ours. I think we try to address it in several ways. One, we look at mental health and we say, how can we contribute to that? Offer up a coaching program specifically dedicated and build that concept into some of our other coaching. We look at how you can relate to the people on your team, how managers can interact, and how they can understand their participants. I know, something that you're passionate about is our Navigate You survey. Understanding the people that work with you and for you is a really powerful tool. And even if it's just the first step, taking that step can open your eyes to all kinds of other conversations. And then we're committed down the road to career well-being and a much more holistic coaching model, right? We want to make sure that we can help you not just when it comes to mental health or stress or physical activity, but also we can coach you through the interpersonal relations and the mentor-mentee relations involved in work. And I think that's something we're really excited about coming up down the road.
We started off by talking about open communication and how that fosters a great culture and psychological safety. Ben, when you think about Navigate You, why do you like that, and where are you using that to foster that culture of open communication?
Yeah, well, it really helps you understand how you think and how you relate to others and show up to work, which I think in today's culture where we're also fast moving from one thing to the next, it's hard to take time to think about how do I present myself? How do I communicate? And how is that received by other people? It's important for our leaders. I use it comparing how I think to how my leader thinks. And then when I'm sharing information with her, I almost tailor my message to make sure it's presented in a way that she can best receive it based on how she thinks and shows up to work. And I think that's the thing that good leaders should be doing, is understanding, how do your employees think and receive information? How do they show up to work? And then when we as leaders and as human resources are communicating things to our employees, how can we message this in a way that's best received, best presented, and hits at what's important to them?
People say they don't like to take surveys, Jay, but I think people don't like to take surveys because there isn't any action after the survey. When you think about pulse surveys that we've done when it comes to our team at Navigate, if you ask them what they love to support, our Navigate workforce, it's kids, it's veterans, it's animals, it's looking at ways to support those groups. And we've utilized that data for good to really connect people. So we have that survey, we take action from it. When you think about the pulse surveys and being able to negate stress or work-life balance, how do you see companies deconstructing those surveys and actually putting action to work on that?
I think it's worth saying one more time what you just said, because it's so important. People aren't tired of surveys. They're tired of taking surveys that they view as not having any action. So if you're going to put a survey in, be ready to do something about it. And we've given our people the tools, our clients the tools to utilize all kinds of different technology methods to do it, right? You want a single point in time survey? Great. You want to ask the same question over and over again and track trends in the population? Great, we're there for you. But how do you take that data and put it in action is largely going to be up to you. But what I would recommend is talking to the experts, right? We've all got a dozen or more different vendors out there that are experts in something. We're experts in holistic well-being. You've got a medical plan, you've got a TPA, you've got a carrier. They're all experts in various things. Talk to them and say, hey, I've got this idea and I want to put it into action. I'm not sure how, or maybe I don't have the resources. And I think more likely than you'd think, you do have the resources. You just maybe not have identified them. Come to your Navigate account manager and say, hey, I've got this idea. I want to know this piece of information so that I can take this action. And we say, yeah, we've got a couple of different survey tools. Let's put it into action like this. Or you go to your TPA, they've got something like that. Or maybe you're trying to solve a problem around, you do your survey and you say, okay, I'm identifying financial well-being as a challenge over here. How can I address that? And we go, well, we've got partnerships there. You've got a 401k vendor. They can help out. You're probably already paying for that. To me, the biggest takeaway for surveying is, 1, know what your tools are. 2, be ready to put it into action. And 3, work with people out there that have technology and resources to bring to bear so that you're not doing all the work yourself.
Yeah, I love it, Jay. It's physical well-being, it's mental health, it's financial literacy, it's all those tools that are available. It's building out opportunities to assist people and giving them the time to do so. Ben, that flexibility aspect of giving people time, whether it be time back, whether it be volunteer time, PTO. I've always found that those variables add up to a great culture and productive employees. I've seen it here at Navigate. I've experienced it myself. What are, when you think about the resources from physical well-being, mental health, financial literacy tools, how are those connecting in what you're doing here, what you're seeing other HR folks do out in the marketplace?
Yeah, I mean, to Jeremy's point earlier, so much of what contributes to people's overall stress is happening outside of work. And I'm not a therapist. I'm not a financial coach. I'm not equipped to help with all of those things. So to Jeremy's point, you have plenty of providers in your network, people that are within your sphere of benefits, TPAs, providers that are experts in those fields. And so being able to hear feedback from your people of what they're struggling with, go to the people who are the experts, and then come back to your employees and say, we heard you. We have this relationship right here that's addressing these issues for you. There's a lot of stuff floating around out there. I mean, we have so many different benefits and all these different websites, right? And sometimes that can be stressful for employees enough too, just to think, yeah, we have this financial coaching program, but it's, how many websites do I have to go through to get there? So the big thing for us, and what's awesome about Navigate, is being able to consolidate those resources and make it so somebody knows, I can come to this one place and get help in a lot of different areas. And that removes that first barrier of just not even knowing where to go.
That's where people talk about building and cultivating a resilient workforce. It's providing those tools. It's adding those things together. It could be a technology, which we are, but it could also be a policy. When you think about policies, Jeremy, we've had multiple policies here at Navigate when it comes to connecting people to their career, when it comes to connecting them to their volunteer work. Where have you seen as a leader those policies work in your team and assisting them? You guys do some pretty stressful things in the technology area. So how are you seeing that kind of develop and maybe build your team?
I think that we have a great set of policies, right? We are committed to our people. We're committed to work-life balance and flexibility. And not just saying that, there are concrete examples about what each of those mean. And it has to be well articulated and communicated over and over again. But I think, to me, it goes a little bit beyond the policy, right? And our job as leaders, and that trickles down to every level of the organization, has to understand what the policy is. But you also have to understand how to implement that policy in a way that's going to be appropriate for everybody. Some people are going to be incredibly motivated to advance at work, right? They want that promotion, they want that raise, they want that next step, they want accolades. Some people are just behind the scenes, powering through it, and maybe they're one of your best performers, but they're just happy where they are. And that's just 2 examples. Everybody lives on some sort of spectrum of what motivates them. And I think the healthiest and most well-rounded managers are going to recognize policy that need and be advocates for policy that is people-centric, right? That we're our best thing we do here is take care of our people, and then can take that and put it into action in ways that are going to impact people's daily lives. And you also have to be a little reflective that all of your decision making around, policy is your framework where you can work out of. And sometimes you may have to color a little bit outside the line, just a hair. But those kind of things, and a lot of it is just like being a good human being and listening to what needs are. But that's where you can really build a cohesive team. Your people will go to bat for you because you've been there for them the whole time.
What I see in HR is, and very similar to what you're saying, is policy is one thing, but the culture is what really drives those actions, and it's driven by your leaders. You have to understand your people. You have to understand how these policies affect them and how you can implement them in a people-first way. We're very lucky to have wellness hours, a generous PTO policy, volunteer time off, but I've worked at places where you submit that time off and you start to get questioning looks, right? Or you try to take advantage of those growth and development opportunities, and it maybe isn't received super well. So to your point, as a leader, it's your job to know that you drive the implementation of this policy through your actions, and that is what creates a people-first culture.
Being able to personally recognize individuals as well throughout the year, not only for the work that they do, but perhaps even their birthday, their anniversary, good kudos on a project well done, or those kind of things. That's what I love seeing inside the well-being space and that employee experience, as more and more groups are bringing that reward and recognition. Lack of recognition can contribute to burnout. Making sure that we're personally recognizing people, whether it be just even the small things. Jay, you talk about a daily side of things, recognizing folks. How do you think about integrating more personal rewards and recognition within your well-being platform and well-being system? Jay, I'll go to you first.
I think it's a great idea. I think that recognition is a way to just about anybody's heart, right? It is important to feel appreciated, no matter how that's done. And a lot of times that could be something as simple as gift cards, or it could be something, a large award in front of your peers. But at the very least, you need to think about what someone's doing at work and let them know that you appreciate that from time to time. And it has to be, to me, it has to be sincere. It has to be thoughtful. We're not checking a box that says we're going to appreciate someone. We're literally appreciating what they did. And we've got a concrete reason for that. And I think it's one of the best things you can do integrating into your well-being program is to make sure that those layers of incentives, you're sort of combining them and building them on top of each other, right? That layered approach to incentive building can be a really powerful tool, and it reinforces all of the different programs, especially when you put them together. So I think absolutely incentivize recognition. I think build it in with your well-being program. And I think make sure you're communicating it often, that it's important to us.
Again, it goes back to the communication side of things, being able to look at workload management, look at work-life balance, look at well-being outside the workplace, making sure that you're recognizing folks, looking at even, Ben, on the compensation side, communicating, regular salary research, news around that, transparency in your pay structures. Jay, you talk about incentives. There's performance-based incentives. That compensation is also an X factor when it comes to perhaps root causes of stress and burnout, but it could also be a solution when communication is done well.
Yeah, I mean, there's always going to be a threshold that people can tolerate a certain amount of work for what they feel is valuable, right? We all have that internal calculus in our head. And too often that conversation is taboo, right? Of talking about how people are compensated, how we review that, and what's fair. And what I'm really proud that Navigate's been able to do in the last year is invest heavily in compensation analysis tools, so we can have that conversation of, we are looking across the market, and we're going to be very transparent with you about you are in market. There's room for you to grow, and what do those next steps look like? And it provides people a pathway for themselves to see, this is work stress, right, that I'm going through now, and there is opportunity for me to continue to grow. They've been very transparent about that, and it can be turned then into a motivating factor as well.
That's another thing I think, Jay, when it comes to what we've been concentrating on Navigate is that career side of well-being and the whole person. Maybe touch on that. And Ben, I'd love to hear from you too on you establishing clear career pathways for all of our employees, looking at offering training and development. Everyone has a dollar amount associated with their training and development that they can use on their own independently. Supporting continuing education. That's what Navigate does. That's what we're seeing more and more groups add into that career X factor of their whole person when people are coming to work. So Jay, maybe touch on the technology first, and then Ben, maybe touch on the growth opportunities that we're doing here at Navigate.
Yeah, so we've identified career well-being, if you will, as a place that people are struggling. And anytime someone's struggling, we want to be able to address it. We recently added several video learning courses on our platform available to anybody for addressing just that. And then we said, you know what, that's not quite enough. We want to do more, right? And we love the human interaction. There's no better way to help someone learn something or help someone change their behavior than having a conversation with someone on a regular basis that they talk to. So we're going to be introducing later this year a career coaching mentoring program that we can help individuals address stress, burnout, help build a more resilient culture at your organization through helping the people that need it the most. So think about it the same way you would high risk, people that are high risk for physical ailments or chronic conditions. We look at it the same way. We say, who out there is burnt out? Let's help them. Let's help elevate that. And in turn, we think that'll have a positive impact that spreads across the organization in the same way that the things you guys are doing on your side of the house are, spread of positivity around Navigate.
Yeah, I think it goes to understanding what is needed from you from a growth and development standpoint. Something that can contribute to burnout is feeling like you don't know what's next, right? You're putting all this in and the wheels are spinning, right? What we're working on doing for all of our positions at Navigate is identifying core competencies. So you can say, I'm in this role. These are the basic skills, the competencies needed for me to be successful. As I think about, I'm interested in moving here, or what does, linearly the next position look like, we can say, here's where we expect you to be at from a competency standpoint. And we can line that up with training and development opportunities built within the Navigate platform, within the learning management system, and make it easier for people to identify, here is where I'm thinking of going next. Here's where I've identified my strengths and where I need to grow and develop to get to that place.
Yeah, those progression routes are extremely important. And again, it goes back to communication and mapping out folks' career here at Navigate even forward. Bringing those things together all is recognizing and addressing the critical issue of growth opportunity. And growth opportunity helps maintain a healthy, productive workforce, and quite frankly, reduces turnover too. So it's a great advantage to do those things. Jay and Ben, when you think about your stress and your burnout, balancing that, where do you go for your work-life balance?
I try to take a step back to identify what's causing that. Again, trying to create space to identify where the root cause of this is. And sometimes you get into the point, as I mentioned earlier, self-defense, where you feel like I can only just do transactional work. I can't think creatively, right? And the thought of this big project is giving me stress and burnout because I'm just so focused on doing all these little things. I can't dedicate that time. So once you identify that, I try to then get really intentional about setting time aside actively to think creatively, to work on some of those items that stress you out. Because if you're not intentional about taking that time, it's real easy to just let's plow through the day and respond to emails, right? I don't need to think about this project because that takes more effort than my stressed brain can handle right now. Creating that space, identifying the root cause of it for yourself, and then making sure that you're intentional about taking time to do things that are going to lower that.
For me, it's about sort of mindfulness techniques, reminding myself why I'm doing this. I get home every day and my dog freaks out excited to see me, which is, one of the high points of my day. My wife's usually home already. I get to get to hang out with her and the puppy and just decompress from the day, not think about it for a little while. I think everybody's got to have that sort of time and place to decompress and be themselves. And maybe that transitions into, let me tell you about my day. Let me get some of that stuff out so it doesn't stick with me for the rest of the night. And finding those coping strategies, for lack of a better word, that are going to allow you to put it down and for work to live at work and for home to live at home. And to me, that's a really powerful way to deal with stress, to mitigate burnout, is to find those ways to leave work at work.
One of the things I love that you do, Jay, is, and this is going on multiple years, is you take that time. You love hockey. So you take that trip where you go see like 3 hockey games and you go to 3 different cities, and that's your thing. And I love it when I love it. I press you to go do that. I say, take your time, go do that. That to me is like one of the best things you can do.
In fact, when this podcast release, I will probably be on one of those hockey trips. And this year we're doing Dallas and Salt Lake City. So I get to see the Utah Hockey Club before they have a good name. But yeah, you got to check
the excitement you already have.
I'm pumped up. You got to check out too. I mean, it's as simple as that. If you're not taking your paid time off or whatever that looks like in your organization, I think it is every manager's responsibility to force people to take time off, not in a negative way, but just in I need you operating at 100%. And if you're in a headspace where you don't think you can take some time off without being overwhelmed, then you need to listen to that as a leader, as a manager, and go, something needs to change, because this person that's one of those telltale signs that someone is burning out.
And that's a lead by example. That's where, you're encouraging managers to recognize and address signs of burnout in their teams. And I'll say that, taking time away is definitely one thing that I've started to do. I'm still working on that a little bit, but like taking some time away and just being with family and shutting down and getting into a good history book or a good long documentary for a couple hours, learning about the Eisenhower administration or some policy from, whatever, really getting into that is sometimes a stress reliever, and sometimes it's actually a stress riser, but still it's taking the time. That, to me, the getting away, spending time with family, that's a strategy for me to promote that work-life balance. And again, as CEO, I need to do that. I'm still working on taking that time away and turning off, my computer, and do those things. But, it's all about that balance and leading by the way and supporting that overall experience that you want to show folks that you work with every single day that, hey, I'm doing this. You should go do this too. Let's come back at 100%. Let's come back and balance that burnout and those stressors and do it in a good way. Ben, if there are 3 things that you really want HR folks out there that are listening who are helping others and really serving that employee experience, what would you want them to get out of this podcast to leave with?
I think the first, and we kind of already touched on this, but one of the most important ways of staying ahead of burnout or stopping it before it gets too advanced is your leaders truly knowing your employees. We talked about personality assessments like Navigate You that's built within our platform to help you truly understand, how do your employees show up? What does engagement look like for them? What motivates them, right? That can help you really be on top of they're not showing up how they usually are. I understand what a day looks like for them, and I'm seeing things are starting to go down a bad path. The second thing I would say is that it really needs to be on all leaders in the organization to own burnout prevention and recognition. So from us as HR leaders, how can we support, help train, and provide resources, frameworks, and guidelines for our leaders to operate within so that they can be the champions of that culture? Because the policies, like I said, are great, but they mean nothing if they're not backed up by a culture of each leader really owning that. Lastly, as HR, I think it's really important that you understand your employees as well, that understand their population. I haven't worked every job in this organization, but I feel like I could give you a general idea of what our folks go through. And that helps you when they're coming to you with issues or frustrations, or you're hearing those from your leader. You can better understand what's within the framework of their job, what's within our policies, what resources do they need that we as an organization can provide. and how can we be more strategic about how we're communicating, preparing, training, and building an organization that truly supports everybody coming from a place of understanding what they go through on a daily basis, which at the heart of it comes from intentionally listening.
It's fantastic. It's important to remember that battling burnout is an ongoing process, and it requires a commitment of leadership, employees to regular check-in, pulse surveys, open dialogue, help identify those potential issues before they can escalate. And prioritizing that with employee well-being to us is where we definitely do it here at Navigate. We help those out there doing good for others and want to continue to make sure that we can build more resilience and engaged, productive workforce that perhaps is better equipped to handle the challenges. And that's what we want to do. Okay, so guys, you know how it is. Best day ever. Ben, thanks for representing today. Appreciate it. Even got the sleeves right too. That's great. Let's go with your best day ever.
Yeah, my best day ever actually just happened last night. So I am a member of a community-based project choir here in the Des Moines area. I didn't study music, but it's been a part of my life for as long as I can remember. And last night we kind of just came together as a one-off thing. We sang for a couple hours and went home. And while it may seem like nothing, and as we're talking about burnout, right, having the energy to go do something like that can seem like a lot. But as I was coming home last night, I was reflected on every time I do this, I feel better. I feel energized. I've done something good. And so that was just fun for me to reflect on how I'm lucky to have those opportunities. And in preparation for this conversation was just a great reminder of those little things that you can do that really bring energy.
Jay, what do you got?
I've got a small one. I like cooking. And last night my wife came home, didn't want to cook, and she was going to do beef and broccoli. So I learned how to do beef and broccoli really quickly and learned a little stir fry technique, and sauce didn't quite come together as I liked, but it was good and delicious, and we had leftovers, and it was just a nice evening. And I was able to help her out and let her decompress for an hour while, I slaved away at a hot stove. It was actually a lot of fun. I like learning new things.
My best day ever is the fact that it is March Madness month, and I get to do two today. So one, it's March Madness. It's a wonderful time of the year. It's my family's favorite sport to engage in, all the way from my 81-year-old mother and father, all the way down my brothers. And we get into it, and we battle our stresses of the underdog and whatnot, and we root for them. But love March Madness. My other one was, it happened last night. It kind of connects to, Ben, what you do is I've been trying to, many of you might know my daughter, Caroline, because she is part of Navigate and we talk about her quite a bit. But I've been trying to get her to understand that she has a wonderful voice. She has a wonderful voice. And I'm like, oh, honey, you should sing. You should do this. She's like, no, Dad, I'm good. And I found out that tomorrow is a second grade class doing an arrangement, and she's actually singing a song. And she did not tell Dad anything about it, but I let her know that I was going to be there. And she was like, oh yeah, Dad, by the way, I'm singing this song. And I'm like, okay, well, all right. So building positive culture at the Vincent house, and she's singing tomorrow. So I'm looking forward to seeing that. But anywho, everybody, thanks for joining us. Thank you for all that you do for others. Keep doing good things, and we'll see you later. Bye-bye.